Hello, hello, and welcome to the last tutorial of this series, where we're going to look into cell shading again and how we can render out this kind of cartoonish cell shaded visuals. And this time we're going to look into 3ds Studio Max and Arnold render engine. Both of them are free to use for students. So the student licenses are free. I believe it's for 3 years. So that should be quite handy for most of you. Um, so the first thing that I did was I just not downloaded, exported my 3D model that I've done in tutorial number 7. So I've exported it as OBJ and just imported it into 3ds Max. Nothing more than that. I believe I chose not to export any textures whatsoever. So this is just pure mesh. And you can see 3ds Max can handle this mesh quite well without any issues. I believe it's, let's just see here. Yeah, that's 7 million polygons. So that's quite good. Okay, let me turn that off. So first of all, placement of the geometry and composition, right? So since I've covered it the last time in the last tutorial, I will not be covering it here. I will just do some random camera angle and mostly focus on the rendering technique itself rather than composition. So the first thing that I want to fix here is the pivot is the pivot position, right? As I've imported this geometry here, you can see that my pivot is set to 0, 0, 0, and it's going to be awkward to move and rotate my geometry if I wish to do so. So to fix that, I just select my geometry, I go to the right-hand side corner where the menu on the right-hand side corner, and I click on hierarchy button right here. Then I choose pivot, pivot, I don't know how to pronounce that. Affect pivot only, and then center to object, right? And then I untick the affect pivot only option. So now my my movement arrows are going to be right in the middle of my structure, which is kind of nice. Next thing I'm going to do is I'll just find a nice angle to work with. Let's go for something like this. And I'll just create a camera from this particular view. Later on I can of course move the camera around, right? So once I've found the angle that I want, I just go to views, create standard camera from view. We're not going to use physical camera, we just use standard. Right? So you can see on the left hand side, camera 1 and camera 1 target was created. And I can choose it from here. So now the next thing is setting up the Arnold renderer, right? So even though Arnold comes in with 3ds Max by default, it's not the default Max's render, at least to my knowledge, it's not. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to set it up so that everything that I render out is rendered through Arnold. To do that, you either hit F10 or you go to rendering, render setup, and this menu is going to pop up. So all of your render settings are here. And by default, for me, it's ART. It might be Arnold Ray Tracing Renderer, but I'm not sure. I don't know what this does. The first thing that I'm going to check, or not check, or change here, is going to be, instead of production rendering mode, I'll change it to active shade mode. So that all of my render updates automatically as I'm rendering it out. So active shade mode here. It's same thing as interactive render in V-Ray for Rhino. Renderer, I will change this one to Arnold. Perfect, and now I have all of the different settings that I can play around with here. Um, Actually, let's just hit the render button, see what happens. There we go. It took it a while, but now it's rendering. I'm running a 4K resolution screen, so it's going to be a bit smaller than I want. But yeah, it's rendering it out. Let me stop it for a second. I want to change a few things, right? So you saw there that, and of course here, that first of all, my render is red, or my shape is red. That means that it has some sort of a inherent material attached to it, and you can kind of see it here on the right-hand side. I want to get rid of that, right? So I'll go to Material Editor, and the shortcut for it is just pressing the M button. M, Material Editor. This one works in a similar fashion as Grasshopper does. So it's a node-based editor. And I'm just going to create a quick toon material for my shape, right? So let me just maximize this. And I will be using search by name here in the top left quite a bit, right? So I will just be creating a toon material. So if I type in toon, I can see two options, and since this is since this is a 4K screen on a laptop, it's clamping the names quite poorly. But yeah, the one that I want is just called toon, and I can see that it's maps Arnold surface, right? So I just click and drag it into my main screen like so. So now I have my toon material here. The thing is that it's a map, it's not a material, right? So I need to change this into, or transfer a map onto some sort of a material. And I can do this by using map to material node, like so. So I just drag and drop. And I can just connect my toon to my texture map input, like that. Simple. Let me minimize this. So you can minimize the nodes by just clicking on the top right corner of any node. So I just minimize it like that, minimize this guy. So I just have toon material and map, or toon map, and then map to material here. Let me go back here, select my geometry. Oh, it's already selected, right? And I'll just apply this material. So you can apply by, if I select my geometry in 3ds Max viewport, and I select my map to material node, here in the top left corner there's assign material to selection button. So I just click on that, and it just simply assigns the material. I'll close this for a bit so that we don't have too much stuff on the screen. And you can see right now my structure is gray, and that material is inherited. If I click on render, yeah, every time when we try to render it out, it's gonna take a while because it needs to import all of the vertices or the whole mesh into the temporary memory. So since the mesh is really big, it's gonna take a while. So I'll try to constantly render it, and yeah, without re-rendering it over and over again. Okay, so what can we change here? First of all, the background is black. Actually, I want to have full control over the background. So let me go to Arnold Renderer tab here. That's again in the, if you either press F10 or you go to rendering where is it? Render setup, right? This guy here. So it's all of your render options. So in the Arnold render tab here, I can change a few things. So the first one is I want to have the outlines, right? I want to have that edge information shown in my render. And that one is filtering type, right? So if I just scroll down here, you can see filtering, and by now it's set to Gaussian. If I change this to contour, I'm not sure if I need to re-render this though. Let me just check. Yeah, probably. Let me re-render it since we're changing the filter type. That's strange. We'll see if there are some other options that we'll need to fix before this starts working. Moving on, I do not want to have any like real life camera exposure control in my scene. So all of my light sources should generate, or the way I look at light sources, they should be flat. So there shouldn't be any additional manipulation of the light values within the camera or the scene itself. So I'll go to environment tab here. I'll open the environment settings, and here I will choose instead of using physical camera exposure control, I'll use no exposure control, like that. So you can see immediately this doesn't get burnt out anymore. Still wondering why does it not give us any lines, but we'll see. So that's just the one thing, no exposure control here. Next thing is the light. Well, actually, let's create a light source because right now we don't have one. So let me close. So I just closed all of the settings. Let me click the P button, P short for perspective, zoom out. Let me just create a light, right? So you can do that by just going to the right-hand side corner here, create tab, then light sub-tab here. And instead of photometric, we use Arnold. And we just create Arnold light. Right? Before we start creating it, I will change a few settings. Or one setting. So instead of quad type, which is a rectangular light in 3ds, in V-Ray, I will change it to distant, which is like a directional light in V-Ray. And then I can just simply drag it out like so. No idea where it's placed. It's like that. So let me just select both of these, move them somewhere closer, slightly higher, just so that it's easier for me to later on control it. Something like that. And let me just move this guy up to get a nice angle. Something like this. Actually, can we just get some shadows here? If I right click on the default shading, I assume, or instead of standard, sorry, I assume I can, in lighting and shadows, I can illuminate with scene lights, like that. Okay, so at least that gives us the information that we need. Let me change this to camera view, but you can do that by clicking the C button, or not. Let's try again. Yes, if you click the C button, it's going to give you the camera view. If you have more than one camera, it's going to then ask you which camera do you want to jump to. So back here, let's see, default shading facets, okay. Lighting and shadows, shadows on, please. Ambient occlusion off. Okay, that seems to be okay. So at least now I can get a little bit of information here. It's not great though. Yeah, let's just use standard here, like that, and instead let's just render render it out. So I can just click on this, hard to see, but on this teapot with the play button, play icon on top of it, I can click on that to start rendering the active shade in active shade mode again. Okay, so that's what we get. Okay, not bad, but could be better. Let me go to the top view a little bit and change the light angle to be almost parallel to the camera angle, or maybe we can, yeah, we shouldn't do that. Maybe we can, come on, really hard to grab it. There we go. Maybe I can switch it around. Like that. So the camera is looking, in top view, the camera is looking towards top right corner, and the light is shining towards bottom right corner. That should make up a pretty interesting light condition. Yeah, that's okay. That looks good. Okay, let's move on. So we have our lighting being rendered, and it's very low resolution. Again, that's due to the size of my screen. Let me just change this. Render setup, common. I'll change this. I'll change the height to 720 pixels by 1440. Something like that. Let's just see how it looks like. Yeah, that's a bit better. Okay, let me close this. Or actually, maybe I should. I'll leave it open just so that you see how things change as I work with them. So now background, right? I want to have a different color for the background. I don't want it to just be black. I'll go to my Arnold render tab. I'll go to scene environment. Sorry, I'll go for background backplate, and instead of scene environment, I'll change this to custom color. And I'll change the color to blue. Let's render again. Let's see if that helps. Re-rendering it. Yeah, okay, that works. So that's blue. Let me actually just change it to some sort of a gray color here. So that's not too much. Then you have here, enable lighting and reflections, right? This is, would you like to Sorry, would you like to reflect stuff off from the environment? And no, we would not, right? So we disable that. We render again. Okay, so this is what we're getting now. That's good, but there are some instances where the light is kind of bouncing around and it's producing this kind of a gray, like a gradient effect. And I want to get rid of that as well. And also, it's a bit too sharp. So the first thing that I'm going to do, I'll go to Arnold Light. I'll click on, in the top left corner, I'll click on modify, and this is for every geometry. This is where you modify stuff. Sorry, for every object. This is how you modify stuff or options for every object. And I'll scroll until I see intensity and exposure. And here I'll just change the exposure to 1. And that should be, yeah, that should be good enough. Let's see. Active shade render. Okay. Yeah, that works. So you can see here that we're getting there, but it still has some additional unwanted things like that are there from the how the physical cameras work and how reality, I guess, works. So we need to get rid of those before we do a proper toon shader. So I'll go to my render options window, which is rendering, render setup. I'll go to Arnold, and here let's find depth limits. This is how many times the light bounces around as it hits different surfaces, right? So I want to reduce this to back to 0, right? So the light doesn't bounce at all. With cartoon style renders, you never have this kind of a bounces of light. Okay, so that's good. So now what we have here is we have the shadow part, we have the mid-tone part, and the highlight part. But the problem is that this is too many tones, right? So we're working with the full gradient between grays and blacks. Maybe even better would be for me to show it with a sphere. So let me just hide the megastructure for a bit. I'll just jump to perspective view. Let me just quickly create a box and a sphere on the box. Like that. Move it up. Is it above? Yes, it's above. Select both of these. I'll just apply the material to it. Okay. Something's fishy here, but we'll take a look at that later. So I just apply the material, and if I render, no, it actually works here. But if I render, you can see here that gradient, right? For that's especially noticeable on soft objects. So we need to clamp that. We need to clamp that to highlight, mid-tone, dark color, right? No no gradients. And we can do that in the material editor. So the shortcut for it is M. Let me just place this one here and this one kind of here. So in material editor, let me expand, or not expand, or double click on the toon material. We have a bunch of settings for it, right? So the first one is edge, which is just basically we can change the color of the edge, right? We can change the tone map of the edge, which is, you can think of it as an overlay color, or multiply color on top of the original one. So if I have this one set to be white and the tone map set to be red, then nothing changes, right? But if I have this, because it's overlay, or it's like in Photoshop you have multiply. But if here I have it set to blue, that's strange. It should change. No, anyway, doesn't matter. Usually you just stick with black, right? Here, you have edge opacity, edge width scale, so you can scale it up like 4 times. Why does nothing update? Yeah. Doesn't matter. We'll be working with edges later. Then for edge detection, this is, when does it decide that it should draw the edge, and this is fine as it is. And there are of course much more options here. The one that we want is base color and base tone map, right? So for base color, I want to change this to let's say red, right? So it just changes it to, it's like my diffuse color becomes red or gray or whichever, doesn't matter. Base tone map is, if I have this set to, let's see, brown, and tone map is set to dark gray. Yeah, I forgot, for the tone map we actually need to have a ramp here. Sorry, I'm blabbing. So for base color, for now, let's just experiment with something that's brown, right? And for tone map, I need what's called and tone map is the one that we're going to use to clamp down the colors. So for tone map, I need a material or a map. And the one that we're going to use is called RGB, or sorry, ramp RGB. This one. So you just search for it, find it, drag and drop it in. And then to connect it to a proper input, all you need to do is just drag it like in Grasshopper. And as you hover over the material, it will expand, and then you just find base tone map and connect it there. So virtually right now nothing changes because there's like a default ramp here. So it's exactly like how Grasshopper, well, not Grasshopper, this is not Grasshopper, how 3ds Max renders it out by default, so this one doesn't do anything. Now, if I were to say, okay, we're right now at 0.0, which is the black one, right? And its position is 0, 0, 0. If I were to change to 0.1, then we're at this end of the spectrum, and its position is 1.0, and I can actually move its position inwards, like that. And you can see as I move it, the highlights get clamped to a single color. But that's not good enough because there's still a gradient here, and it's basically I would just need to move it right to here to be able to clamp it. So point 0 and point 1 should be at the same position, which is not ideal for me. So instead what I can do is I can change the interpolation value. Instead of using catmull rom, I can use constant. That's weird. Wait, let me stop the render for a bit and just work with these. So for some reason this one got locked. Let me just try and redo this. RGB, connect to, or is it base tone map, double click on it, and interpolation constant. There we go, for some reason now it works. So if I have it done like that, this is just going to be pure black, right? Because everything gets clamped to the black tone. But if I go to point number 1, which is at this right-hand side of my ramp, and I just move its position just slightly to the left, and just keep moving it, you can see that now I have full control over where that shadow is going to, or that highlight is going to be clamped, at which light value. I can also create a new point for this ramp by just double clicking like that and then selecting that point. So right now it's point 1, point 0, and then point 2. So I'll just select point 1 like that, and I'll increase its value, right? So I'll just make it mid-gray, like so. And I can play around with its position as well, right? So I can do something like this. Which is really nice. So now you can see here that we have full control over where we have our shadows, where we have our midtones, and where we have our highlights. There is one more thing to work with in this case, and that's the overall colors, right? So my base is beige, this kind of a brownish color. And let's say my light source is something warm, right? So my light source is not just white light, but it has some warmth to it. So if I select my point number 2, and here for the value, I choose something that's active red, right? It will overlay, it will color my beige color with that particular overlay color, right? So I can choose it to be, let's say, more yellowy. Then for midtones, I can choose to have, my default midtone color, so just gray. And for darker tones, I can choose to have some sort of a dark blue color. So now my shadows are not completely black anymore, which is really nice. And I can play around with this until I find a color that works for me. Okay. Maybe the midtones should be just a little bit darker, like that. So now my shadows receive this kind of bluish tint, and my highlights receive this kind of yellowish tint. Maybe let's do more, can we do pink? let's go for more orange tint, like that. And my midtones are just gray, meaning they don't affect the base color at all. So we have that working for us. That's super. Let's see how it works with our mesh, right? Delete, delete, zoom out. Where's our mega structure? Let's go to our camera. Just in case, I'll assign material to my megastructure, just to make sure that you know, it updates properly. Let's just see. Active shading on, or active shade renderer on. Yeah, and that's the geometry that I get. For some reason, I am getting proper outlines, but I'm not getting any lines for the, the interior, like any interior bend lines. I'm not getting those. So first thing that I'm going to check is what kind of geometry do we have here? Just editable poly. So that's clean, that's fine. So I assume it's something with my toon shader. Let me double click that and let's check what we can see. So edge detection, right? Let me see if what happens if we change the shading normal to geometric normal. Yeah, that doesn't help at all. So back to shading normal. What if we use a higher UV threshold? Okay. So it's not the UV threshold, but rather it's the angle threshold, so angle at which it will start drawing the lines. So if I change this to something like 15 degrees, you can see that most of my lines are going to be drawn. So that's perfect, right? So now it's kind of working. So all I needed to do was for edge detection just to say that angle threshold is 15. For silhouette, I will enable it, first of all. I'll say silhouette with scale should be like 2. So the outline, the silhouette outline should be a bit thicker. What else? Everything else here is fine. Of course, the line thickness changes according to how big the render is, because it's all in pixels. So it's all proportional. But we will take care of that later. Specular base. So I'm just minimizing things that I will not be changing for now. So edge, color, that's fine. Tone map is fine. Yeah, all of that is okay. Edge detection, that's fine. Silhouette, base, transmission. Yes. Sheen and emission color and so on. So you might want to work with emission color as well. But that's for something that's atmospheric, a little bit more atmospheric and so on. So if you just want to have one overlaying color, over the whole thing, that you do need a ramp for it. So let me just, how do you copy it again? Let me just grab a new ramp, connect it to, where is it? Let me just connect it to emission color just to show you. Like that. Change this to constant again. Move this. And let's say one value is, it's auto-saving, wait. Let's see, one value is, it's starting to become crashy. So I'll just change one of the values to be blue and the other one to be pink, just to see what will happen. Render it out, and I believe that we will need to work with, it doesn't update, so we would need to work with opacity of the, where is it, of the base. Where is the opacity of the base? Or base weight? I don't remember. That's so many settings here, but it's basically we don't care. We just want to have a very basic shader for this guy, which we do have. There is one more thing that I would like to add, and it's let's see. Minimize that, go to perspective mode, rotate around just to see how it looks like. So with this kind of geometry, I don't want to add any more line work detailing or anything like that, because it would be quite of a overkill just by looking at it. Let's see if we can kind of find a nicer angle. You can see how many lines it produces, especially in areas such as these right here. So we definitely don't want to create any more line work here, because it would be way too much. But just to show you, let me auto-saving again. Let me just stop the hide the render, I mean, hide the structure. Just go to the settings. For some reason it says that it's rendering, even though it's not. Doesn't matter. Let me just create a box. Oops, a bigger one though. A box, and again a sphere. Right. So with these two, I'll be able to actually show you what I mean. Let's add the material to them. Assign material. Let's just render them. Okay, so simple, same render, or not same render, but same qualities as we've seen before. And what if I want to add some additional line work in there? I can do that by just selecting what kind of texture I'll be using, and I've just created this with the Jsplacement software. So I'll be using this kind of a texture, and I can just drag and drop it into my material editor, which will just create this bitmap for me. And basically what I want to do is I want to generate a bunch of lines from my bitmap, right? So if I were to double click on this guy, just snap it there, make this a bit smaller. And if I go to edge detection, here you can see there's this mask color option, which means we can use some additional, we can use some sort of a alpha mask or some sort of a mask to generate more lines on top of the already existing ones, right? So if I just connect it to my mask color input here, like that. Ooh, that's a little bit too much, but that's the tiling problem of this particular geometry, or of this particular object. So I'll just be changing the UV W mapping for both of these. So I'll select them, I'll go to Modify tab, I'll go to Modifiers list, and I'll just find, and all of that is, just straight up in 3ds Max on the right hand side. I'll choose UVW map from my modifier list. And here I can change this to box mapping, like that. And I believe, that's strange. Why doesn't it let me? Is it because it's rendering? Let me close the render. Huh. It doesn't let me change. Okay, let me try and change the size of the gizmo. It's been a while since I used 3ds Max, so I don't remember all of the different options of it. Okay, so changing gizmo seems to work, but that's like not a shortcut, but a workaround. Why can't I? Doesn't matter. Basically, after you apply UVW map, the box map, you expand it, right? You go to gizmo, and then you choose scale, and just scale it up, right? And I would suggest at that point rendering, and just scaling it until the size of it kind of fits with what you want to see. Okay. Actually, let me make it smaller. Even smaller. Okay, something like this. Once you have it working, that's it. Then you can go back to your maps or to your material editor. And for instance, in the bitmap, I can go to output of it, and I can specify, where is it? Is it clamp? I don't remember anymore. No, it's not inverting it. Yeah, let's just go for enable color map, and then you can play around with the intensity of the map itself. And if I were to make it less or more intense, I would have less or more control over the overall line work. You know, what's being read as lines and what's not. Honestly, maybe it would be even better, like we would have more control with UV threshold. Let's see if I increase this one here. No, that one doesn't care. Okay, so it's just that. And of course, right now, which with all of them, how do you say that? Right now, with the image being quite small, and all of the edges having a locked thickness to them, it's a bit of an overkill. But if you start playing around with render setup, sample pixel filter, if you change this to width of 1 and then re-render, you can see here that you can, you can get much thinner, much nicer results. And then you can, but the thing is, the smaller this value is, the longer it's going to take to render. So keep that in mind. All right, and that's honestly, like, with these tools, you can get away with so much. You can use, instead of using a bitmap, you can use a noise texture or noise map, and then you can create these kind of irregularities, these kind of dents. You can use a noise map for the surface color and create these kind of spots of discolorment on the surface and so on. So there's a lot of how do you say, there is a lot of manipulation that can happen here. I've just shown you the pure basics of it for you to start be able to start working with it and move out from there, move forward, I guess, from there. So now it's up to you to do what you want to do. I will be continuing on this video without any commentary, just as per usual, preparing. Let me close that. Just preparing the visuals for the intro screen, so you can take a look at that. And also, I'll be playing right now. I'll be playing a video that we've done for the past semester, like the last autumn semester. A video that was done in exactly this approach with 3ds Max, so that you can get an idea of what's possible and what you can do with it. So this was the last tutorial of the series. Let me just quickly press play here so that you have something to look at. This was the last tutorial of the series. We will be I will be doing, of course, many more tutorials in the future, but for now there's going to be a short break where the next video that we're going to have is going to be of a review video for my students, so you can check it out. We're basically going to talk about the elements used for the marching cubes script that we've done and the students had to design. And then I'm just going to fill in the gap between the tutorials with some fun side projects and fun videos or fun experiments that I've been doing over the period of past few months. So keep an eye out for those. But for now, thanks for watching and bye.